Attention turns to Geneva, where indirect talks between the United States and Iran are resuming at a moment of rising military tension and, of course, narrowing diplomatic space, with American carrier groups moving into position, Iran expanding its nuclear program, and regional allies watching closely, very closely, how the negotiations are attempting to prevent what may fear, or what that fear could lead to Middle East next biggest conflict. Of course, we're watching the area. Of course, we are tuning in to see what's going on. We are also looking at the discussions that are unusually fragile. Why? Well, because the two sides are not meeting face to face. Like I said, they're relying instead on Omani mediators to carry proposals between separate rooms. That is the current situation. To see what exactly is being negotiated, why the stakes are so high, higher than before, and how closely diplomacy is now shadowed by military planning. Let's break it down. Let's see exactly what is happening, what the situation is. Well, those talks now are unfolding in Geneva. Like I said, they could initially tell us what is happening. They're relying on these mediators, but we're going to go ahead and see Shabnam explain the situation right now and what's currently unfolding.
The world's most dangerous diplomatic standoff is back in a Swiss conference room. This week, American and Iranian negotiators will sit in separate rooms in Geneva, passing messages through Omani mediators, trying to prevent what could become the Middle East's next major conflict. It's indirect diplomacy at its most tense, and the gap between what Washington wants and what Tehran will accept has never felt wider. This is round two. The first attempt happened in Oman on February 6th. It didn't break the impasse. Now, with the US aircraft carriers streaming towards the Persian Gulf and Iran's uranium stockpile growing by the minute, both sides are back at the table. But calling it a table is generous. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and the US delegation led by envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, won't even be in the same room. Omani representatives are in Geneva to mediate, shuttling proposals back and forth between the two sides, because direct talks remain politically impossible for both governments. Here's the central problem. The United States is demanding Iran accept zero enrichment of uranium, dismantle the program, walk away from the centrifuges, end the nuclear ambitions entirely. But while zero enrichment is the public line, Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently signaled that while they are dealing with radical clerics, the preference remains a negotiated settlement. Washington sees any enrichment capability as an unacceptable threat. Tehran sees enrichment as a sovereign right and economic necessity. Neither side has shown any willingness to blink. First, Iran's answer: absolutely not. Tehran says it will only discuss limits, not elimination, in exchange for comprehensive sanctions relief. They want the economic noose loosened before they even consider scaling back. However, Iran's deputy foreign minister told the BBC on Monday that Tehran would consider compromises on its massive uranium stockpile if Washington lifts sanctions. Rafael Grossi posted on X today, just completed in-depth technical discussions with Iran's Foreign Minister Araghchi in preparation for important negotiations scheduled for tomorrow in Geneva. This matters enormously. The IAEA has a massive headache. Iran reportedly has a stockpile of 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, and the agency wants to know exactly what happened to it. Where is it? How much is really there, and what's it being used for now? The operation in June 2025 was the first ever combat use of the bunker buster, and that it targeted the exact same sites: Natanz, Firdaus, Isfahan, currently under discussion. This explains why the IAEA is so desperate for access. They are trying to verify what's left of the 440 kilogram stockpile after those specific strikes. Grossi needs answers, and he needs them before any deal can move forward. It's also worth noting that the Iranian team led by Araghchi has explicitly stated they are in Geneva with real ideas, but will not negotiate under threat. While diplomats talk, the Pentagon is preparing for war. Let's be clear about what's actually happening versus what's being hyped up online. What is happening is that the US military planners are drawing up contingency plans for potentially weeks-long operations if President Trump orders strikes. And the scope has expanded, with plans hitting Iranian state and security facilities, not just nuclear infrastructure. The posture is real. The USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group has been operating in the Arabian Sea since at least February 6th. A second aircraft carrier has been sent to the Middle East to ratchet up military pressure. The USS Gerald R. Ford has been sent to join the USS Abraham Lincoln. The US is signaling that it's ready to act if diplomacy fails. Iran is watching every ship movement. Officials expect Iran would retaliate hard. Iran possesses a formidable arsenal of missiles, and any sustained US campaign would likely trigger back and forth strikes over weeks, potentially dragging the entire region into conflict. Behind the scenes, there's another conversation happening, one involving money, lots of it. Reporting suggests big ticket deals are being quietly floated. Energy sector investments, mining projects, aircraft purchases from Boeing to Airbus. These aren't part of the formal negotiations, they're signals. Both sides are trying to show there's a prize at the end of the tunnel without admitting the tunnel exists. It's how diplomacy works when neither government can afford to look like it's compromising. You dangle the carrot while arguing about the stick. Here's what to watch as all of this unfolds. First, does the IAEA get anything concrete from Monday's meeting? Real access, a timeline, even a face-saving technical understanding would be progress. Second, do the red lines soften? Will the US accept strict limits instead of zero enrichment? Will Iran accept limits without full sanctions relief upfront? And third, how hard does the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu push his maximalist demands? That position far harder than Washington's current zero enrichment line shapes what the US can accept at the negotiating table, even when the White House insists it doesn't. But I think you have to look at the fact that against all of this, there are some really high obstacles. Iran, after all, has killed many thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of its own citizens. That makes it very hard and controversial to reach an agreement that lifts sanctions on them. That, together with pressure from Israel and regime change hawks inside Trump's administration, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, will put real incentives on President Trump to make maximalist demands. If these talks collapse, the alternatives are grim. US military strikes, Iranian retaliation, a regional war that could pull in Israel, Saudi Arabia, and others. Oil prices will spike, global shipping routes will face disruption. The Middle East, already fragile, could ignite. But if there's progress, even incremental progress, it could open a path towards de-escalation. Right now, we're in the space between those two futures. Right now, we're in the space between those two futures, and the next 72 hours will tell us which direction we're heading.